Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Ma'am, vendors check in around the side. Guests check in here. The words cut clean through the wedding lawn, sharp, public, final. The estate looked like money trying to cosplay innocence, white umbrellas, linen tables, blush roses arranged with surgical precision. String lights already glowed overhead, soft gold against the late sun. Champagne flutes stood in perfect rows beside a bucket of ice that crackled faintly like quiet applause. The kind of setting where everything was meant to feel warm. And yet, at the entrance to it all, the air turned cold. Amara Kingsley stopped mid-step. Her navy evening dress wasn't loud. It didn't try to prove anything. It simply fit her like certainty, sleek lines, subtle shimmer, fabric that moved like it had nothing to fear. She carried no oversized clutch to hide behind. No nervous smile. No apology in her posture. Just calm. The security guard, broad-shouldered, mid-40s, earpiece tucked behind his ear, kept one hand raised as if he could stop her with a gesture alone. His eyes skimmed her once, fast and dismissive, then flicked to the check-in stand. Name, he asked. Amara Kingsley. He didn't type it right away. He hesitated long enough for the moment to become something else. Then he tapped the tablet with exaggerated care, like the screen would confirm whatever he already believed. I don't have you, he said. Amara's voice stayed level. Check again. His jaw tightened. Ma'am, if you're with a vendor team, check-in is around the side of the house. Around them, conversations thinned. A cluster near the champagne table angled their bodies, watching without wanting to look like they were watching. Two men in tuxedos stopped laughing mid-sentence. A woman in pale silver leaned toward her friend, whispering behind her hand, but not quietly enough. Is she staff? The word didn't float. It landed. Amara didn't flinch. She looked past the guard toward the lawn where guests gathered in clusters like alliances. Beyond them, the floral arch stood ready, white balloons, pale ribbons, a runway for a perfect entrance. It was 5 minutes to the processional. You could feel it in the way people checked their phones, adjusted cufflinks, fixed lipstick, leaned toward the aisle. That's when Margaret Whitmore turned. Fitted beige dress. Pearls at her throat. Hair sculpted into wealth. She didn't rush, she glided, letting attention find her like perfume. Behind her hovered a wedding planner with a tablet pressed to her chest, face tight with the terror of anything going off script. Near the arch, the bride Claire stood with her bridesmaids, bouquet held like a shield. Her expression wasn't anger yet. It was confusion turning slowly into dread. Margaret stopped an arm's length from Amara and smiled with no warmth. Oh, she said, stretching the syllable like a judgment. You're not on the list. Amara met her eyes. I was invited. Margaret's smile sharpened. This is a private event. She turned slightly, projecting her voice just enough for nearby guests to hear. And we're trying to keep things organized. Organized. A polite word for controlled. She glanced at the planner like she was summoning a tool. Please direct her to the side entrance. We can't have confusion at a wedding. The planner swallowed. Mrs. Whitmore, I. Margaret cut her off with a small, impatient flick of her fingers. A few guests laughed, softly, safely, grateful the attention wasn't on them. A phone rose, pretending to capture the lights. Another phone rose without pretending at all. Amara's gaze caught the lens. The person holding it lowered it immediately, like shame had finally found them. Margaret didn't miss that. Her expression tightened, annoyed that Amara wasn't shrinking. And then a man in a dark suit drifted in from the side, mid-30s, smile too eager, confidence borrowed from the crowd. He held a champagne flute like it was a prop. "Hey," he said, voice syrupy. "You sure you're in the right place? They're pretty strict about this sort of thing." He stepped closer, too close. Close enough that Amara could smell alcohol and entitlement. Amara didn't move back. So he adjusted his stance and accidentally bumped his glass against her. Cold champagne spilled in a bright, sparkling splash across the front of her navy dress. Bubbles popped against fabric. The stain spread fast, dark, undeniable. A hush snapped into place. Then a few gasps. Then the smallest laugh from someone who shouldn't have laughed at all. The man lifted his hands in a theatrical apology. "Oh wow. I'm so sorry. Total accident." Margaret pressed her fingertips to her chest. "How unfortunate," she said, "I saying something else entirely." For a second, the world narrowed to small sounds, fizzing champagne on cloth, ice settling in the bucket, a chair leg scraping the grass. Amara looked down at the stain. Then she looked back up. She didn't reach for napkins. She didn't panic. She didn't plead her case louder. She simply held Margaret's gaze with a steadiness that made the older woman's smile wobble. Because humiliation only works when the person agrees to wear it. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Amara. Margaret's voice hardened, dropping the sweetness. "Security," she snapped, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "Remove her. Now. We are not doing this today." The guard stepped forward again, more confident with Margaret beside him. "Ma'am," he said, forcing politeness, "I'm going to need you to come with me." Amara didn't move. Her stillness did something to the lawn, made everyone suddenly aware of their own silence, their own faces, their own choices. Guests who had been smiling glanced away. People who had been recording pretended they never were. Near the arch, Claire's face drained of color. Her grip tightened on the bouquet until her knuckles went pale. She looked toward the aisle, then toward the house, searching for anyone to intervene. Then footsteps cut through the tension. Measured. Certain. Not rushed. A man in a black tuxedo moved onto the lawn from the direction of the porch, passing groomsmen who looked startled to see him break formation. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry, either. He was focused. The groom, Ethan Caldwell, walked as if he'd just spotted a fire no one else was brave enough to name. The conversations died completely. Even the string lights overhead felt too decorative for what was happening now. Margaret turned toward him, relief flickering across her face, until she saw his eyes. They didn't go to her. They didn't go to the stain on Amara's dress. They went straight to Amara. Ethan stopped in front of her. And then, in one deliberate movement that turned the entire scene inside out, he bowed his head. Not to Margaret. Not to the crowd. To Amara. He extended his hand, palm open, respectful. When Amara placed her hand in his, Ethan clasped it firmly, as if sealing something official in public. And with the whole wedding watching, champagne, pearls, roses, and prejudice, Ethan said her name. Amara Kingsley. The lawn went silent. Not awkward silence. The kind that freezes a room. Ethan released a slow breath, eyes still on her. "Who did that?" he asked, voice low. The man in the dark suit took a half step back, eyes darting toward Margaret like she might rescue him. Margaret stepped in quickly, body blocking the view, smile snapped back on like a mask. "It was an accident," she said. "And we can have someone bring her a towel. We don't need a scene." Ethan finally looked at Margaret. His gaze didn't shout. It didn't need to. It landed like a verdict. "You don't get to decide what we need," he said. "Not today." Phones rose again, but more carefully now, like people were afraid of being caught on the wrong side of the moment. Claire stared at Amara with dawning recognition, like a headline she'd seen weeks ago had suddenly walked into her wedding and gotten called staff. "Ethan." Claire's voice cracked. "Who is she to you?" Ethan's expression softened when he looked at Claire, tenderness threaded through the steel. "She's the reason I'm standing here," he said. Claire blinked, unsteady. "What do you mean?" Ethan didn't rush. "Before I met you, I was one meeting away from losing everything," he said. "I was denied funding. Denied partnerships. Denied access. Not because my work was weak, because my last name didn't unlock doors." A few older men shifted uncomfortably. Ethan's gaze returned to Amara, respect unmistakable. "Amara opened a door," he said. "Not because she felt sorry for me. Because she saw value no one else cared to look for." Margaret's smile tightened. "Ethan," she said carefully, "the ceremony is about to start." Ethan didn't blink. "Later is how you get away with things," he said. "This is now." Margaret's voice sharpened. "I was protecting this family. We have standards." "No," Ethan said. "You have a habit." The sentence hit harder than an insult because it sounded like truth. Claire's eyes filled. "I saw what happened," she said quietly, glancing at the stain, then at the man who'd slipped. Margaret's lips parted. "Claire." "You called her staff," Claire continued, voice gaining steadiness. "And everyone laughed." Margaret turned to the crowd with a hostess smile and clapped once, sharp and commanding. "All right," she announced brightly. "Let's refocus. We are here to celebrate Claire and Ethan." No one moved. No one laughed. Margaret's smile frayed. She pivoted back to Amara, the hostility no longer hidden. "This is a private event," she said. "If you're not on the list, you leave." Amara's voice stayed calm. "I walked in," she said. "That's all." "Then walk out," Margaret snapped. The guard hesitated, eyes flicking between Ethan and Margaret, unsure whose authority was real. Ethan stepped subtly between the guard and Amara, not aggressive, just enough to make the boundary visible. "She's not going anywhere," Ethan said. Margaret's voice jumped. "You're choosing her over your family?" Ethan's answer was steady. "I'm choosing decency over your habits." Claire stepped forward, trembling but real. "Mom," she said, "what are you doing?" Margaret's expression softened instantly, practiced tenderness. "Honey, I'm protecting you. I don't want distractions. You know how people are." Claire looked at Amara's stained dress. Then back at her mother. "Stop," she whispered. "Just stop." Margaret's eyes flashed with panic, because the story was slipping from her hands. So she grabbed a bigger weapon, volume. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "I apologize for this interruption. We have an uninvited person attempting to insert herself into our family's event. Security will handle it. Amara finally let her voice carry, not shouting, simply refusing to be reduced. I wasn't uninvited, she said. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Then why aren't you on the list? Amara held her gaze. Because your list isn't the only one that matters. A murmur rose, small, growing. Margaret's mouth tightened. What does that even mean? Ethan turned slightly toward the crowd, calm as a man taking ownership of the moment. I invited Amara personally, he said. Because I wanted her here. Because I wanted her to see what she helped me build. Claire stared at him, wounded and bewildered. You never told me. I didn't know how, Ethan admitted. Your mother controls the narrative. Margaret stiffened. This is not a board meeting. Exactly, Ethan said. That's why you don't get to treat people like disposable decorations. Phones rose again, this time not for drama, but for proof. Margaret's composure cracked. She pointed at Amara, voice sharp with desperation. Fine. Who are you really? Amara stepped forward, champagne stain visible, refusing to let the humiliation be edited out. My name, she said, calm as snowfall, is going to sound familiar to you in about 30 seconds. Margaret scoffed. Is that a threat? It's a fact, Amara replied. Ethan lifted his hand slightly, subtle, but the lawn quieted. It was strange how quickly people obeyed when they sensed real authority. Some of you may not know this, Ethan said, but before I ever had a seat at the tables you call important, there was a point where I was one meeting away from losing everything. He looked at Amara, respect deep as a debt. Amara Kingsley opened a door for me, he said. Not out of pity. Out of discipline. Then he faced the crowd. She is the CEO of Kingsley Meridian Holdings, Ethan said. And the managing partner of Kingsley Meridian Capital. Recognition hit like a wave. Faces changed. Whispered names turned into swallowed words. Claire's mouth opened but couldn't form the title. Margaret's smile froze, then began to slip. Ethan turned to the guard. She's my guest, he said. Under my protection. The guard straightened. Yes, sir. Margaret's voice went thin with outrage. I don't care what company she runs. This is still my daughter's wedding. Ethan's gaze stayed calm. Then act like it, he said. Because what you just did wasn't motherly. It wasn't classy. It wasn't protection. Claire's voice shook. Mom, you smiled when it happened. Margaret tried to deny it, but denial sounded ridiculous in a room full of phones. Amara watched it all with composed stillness, no triumph, no cruelty. Just clarity. Ethan looked at Amara again, then toward the estate behind them, the porch, the lawn, the lights, the illusion of ownership. There's something else you don't know, Ethan said quietly, turning back to Margaret. Margaret's eyes narrowed. What? Amara spoke, calm as if she were stating the weather. This venue, she said, is not yours. The sentence landed like a door slamming shut. For a heartbeat, Margaret Whitmore didn't react because her brain refused the idea. People like her survived by assuming certain things were permanent: status, access, dominance. Ownership. She forced a laugh, brittle. Excuse me? Amara didn't raise her voice. She didn't lean in. She held eye contact like a contract. The Whitmore family signed a weekend rental agreement, Amara said. That's all. Margaret's smile twitched. This estate has been in our circles for decades. We have relationships. Relationships, Amara repeated. And paperwork. The wedding planner looked like she might faint. Her fingers tightened around her tablet. Ethan turned slightly toward the planner. Who is the venue manager today? The planner pointed shakily. Mr. Halverson, he's on the porch. Bring him, Ethan said. Margaret stepped forward, panic bleeding through her polish. Ethan, stop. You're humiliating me. Ethan's answer was steady. You humiliated someone else first, he said. This is just the truth catching up. The lawn suddenly rearranged itself, guests stepping back, creating a circle around the confrontation. No one wanted to be close enough to be implicated. A man in a headset stepped onto the porch, late 50s, efficient posture, tired of rich people's drama. The planner rushed to him, whispering urgently. His eyes widened when he saw Amara. He froze, then straightened sharply. Miss Kingsley, he said, immediate respect. I wasn't told you'd be visiting today. Margaret's face drained. Amara gave him a small nod. I wasn't planning to. Mr. Halverson glanced at Ethan, then at the guard, then at Margaret, calculating fast. Margaret forced a smile that looked painful. There's confusion, she said. We rented the estate. This woman is disrupting. With respect, Mr. Halverson interrupted, polite but firm, Kingsley Meridian owns the property through a holding structure. The rental agreement is issued by their management arm. The crowd made a collective sound, half gasp, half whisper. Margaret's mouth opened, then closed. Amara didn't gloat. She simply let the correction happen. Margaret tried one last grasp at control, voice sharp. Fine. Then ask her to leave. I don't want her here. Amara took one small step forward. No, she said. One word. Calm. Unshakable. Margaret blinked, offended. What did you say? I said no, Amara repeated. Because this isn't your property to police. And this isn't your day to poison. The guard didn't hesitate now. He shifted subtly away from Margaret, posture aligning with the venue manager and the groom. Claire stepped closer, eyes wet but steady. I want her here, she said quickly, like speaking it out loud was her first act of independence. Margaret's face twisted. Claire. Stop, Claire said again, firmer. Just stop. Ice crackled in the champagne bucket, loud in the hush. Amara's phone vibrated once. A preview line flashed, something administrative. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. Ethan noticed. Is everything okay? He asked, low. It will be, Amara said. Her thumb moved once, quick and precise, sending a message with no extra words. Pause the closing. She slipped the phone away as if she'd adjusted a bracelet. Margaret watched her, unsettled, not because she understood the message, but because she felt something moving underneath her feet. Something procedural. Something irreversible. Ethan exhaled slowly, then turned to the officiant near the arch. We're continuing, he said. Give us 1 minute. He faced the crowd. There's one thing I need everyone to understand, Ethan said, voice controlled. You don't get to come onto this property, onto this day, and treat someone like they're disposable. Not under my name. The words my name drew a line in the grass. Margaret's lips pressed together. Pride battled survival behind her eyes. Amara spoke softly, but the people closest heard it clearly. You wanted to remove me, she said. So let's be clear, you don't have that authority. And you do? Margaret hissed. I have responsibility, Amara replied. There's a difference. Margaret had no clean words left. And then, without theatrics, without chaos, the wedding moved forward. Not because Margaret regained control. Because Amara refused to let her control the ending. The ceremony didn't get delayed. That was the part that unsettled Margaret most. Chaos was what she expected when she lost power, raised voices, broken plans, staff scrambling. But Amara didn't bring chaos. She brought structure. Ethan signaled quietly to his best man. The groomsmen shifted, not to threaten, but to create space. The planner exhaled like she'd been drowning. Someone smoothed the aisle runner. Someone refilled water stations. The string lights kept glowing, warm and indifferent. Margaret stood in beige and pearls, suddenly unsure where to put her hands. Amara stepped to the side of the porch where the noise faded into a distant ocean. She pulled out her phone again, not dramatically, just like a woman checking the weather. One call. The first voice that answered was calm, professional, female. Ms. Kingsley. Evelyn, Amara said. I want a clean pause. A brief silence, processing, not confusion. Understood. Which file? The Whitmore transaction, Amara said, gaze drifting toward Margaret. Freeze the closing. Notify counsel. No signatures move until I say so. Copy. Legal and compliance are being alerted. Do you want a rationale logged? Yes, Amara said. Conduct risk. Reputational exposure. Harassment on company-controlled property. Noted. Amara ended the call and slipped her phone away. No fireworks. Just an administrative click. The kind that changed lives without raising its voice. Ethan stepped beside her. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. I know, Amara replied. That's why it matters. On the lawn, Margaret tried again. Mr. Halverson, I want her away from my guests. Mr. Halverson's tone stayed respectful. Mrs. Whitmore, Miss Kingsley is not the person I can ask to leave. Margaret snapped toward Ethan. Then ask him. He's the groom. Ethan took a slow breath, then spoke like a man tired of pretending. I've decided, he said. Amara stays. You're choosing her over your family? Margaret demanded. I'm choosing decency over your habits, Ethan said. Claire's voice, quiet but firm, cut through. Mom, you need to stop ordering people around like they're furniture. Don't embarrass me, Margaret hissed. You embarrassed yourself, Claire whispered. Margaret froze. The words didn't just hurt. They rewrote the hierarchy she'd relied on for decades. The guard approached Amara carefully. Ms. Kingsley. I'd like to apologize. Amara looked at him. Don't apologize to me, she said. Apologize to the next person you assume doesn't belong. He swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Nearby, the man who spilled champagne tried to disappear. It didn't work. Eyes followed him like a spotlight. People stepped aside as he passed, not respect. Avoidance. Margaret started to call after him, then stopped. Even she could sense she'd lost the room. A minute later, the music cue arrived, soft strings rolling over the lawn. It was time. Claire walked down the aisle, eyes glossy but determined. Ethan waited for her with a steady, protective calm. The officiant spoke. The wind moved the flowers. The lights glowed overhead like indifferent stars. Amara stood off to the side, present but not performing, the dried champagne stained dark against navy, visible proof of what the room tried to do. Claire's vows trembled at first, then steadied, like her spine was catching up to her heart. "I want a marriage where we don't borrow courage," Claire said, hands in Ethan's. "I want a life where we don't let other people decide who deserves dignity." Margaret's jaw tightened so hard a muscle jumped in her cheek. Ethan's vows were simple, controlled, honest. When he kissed Claire, it felt real despite everything that had tried to poison the day. Applause came, hesitant, then louder, like people clapping to drown out their earlier silence. The reception followed, trays of hors d'oeuvres, music swelling, glasses refilled. Guests pretended the afternoon never happened. But the truth didn't disappear just because the lights were pretty. Margaret approached Amara near the edge of the lawn, face composed, voice lowered like a negotiation. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "We can smooth this over." Amara studied her. "You don't want it smoothed," she said. "You want it erased." "I want to protect my family," Margaret insisted. "You want to protect your image," Amara corrected. "Your family was never in danger. Your control was." Margaret leaned in, sharp desperation beneath her perfume. "Whatever you did with the business, you can't." Claire stepped between them. Not aggressive. Decisive. "Mom," Claire said, voice low, "you're not doing this." Margaret stared. "Excuse me?" "You owe her an apology," Claire said, the words solid now. Margaret gave a short laugh. "For what?" "For trying to throw her out," Claire said. "For letting someone spill champagne on her. For turning your guests into a mob." Margaret's face reddened. "Claire, don't be dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic," Claire said. "I'm being honest." Amara watched Claire, something softening in her eyes, not pity. Recognition. Claire turned to Amara, trembling. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I should have stopped it sooner." "You stopped it when you could," Amara replied. "That matters." Claire swallowed hard. "I want to make it right." Amara took a breath, gaze going distant like she was measuring something invisible. "I didn't come here for revenge," she said quietly. "But I won't waste a lesson." She looked at Ethan and Claire together. "Redirect a portion of today's discretionary budget," Amara said. "The money that would have gone to upgrades no one remembers, extra florals, luxury add-ons, vanity details." The planner looked up, startled. "Redirect, where?" Amara's voice stayed steady. "To a scholarship fund," she said. "Women who are told they don't belong in rooms like this. Women who get treated like they're only useful when they're serving." Margaret stiffened. "You're using my daughter's wedding to grandstand." Amara didn't look at her. "No," she said. "I'm using your behavior to create something better than you." Then she added, calm and final, "and I'll match it. Dollar for dollar." Claire's tears slid down, relief, not humiliation. "Yes," she said. "We'll do it." Amara finally looked at Margaret, eyes steady. "This is what dignity looks like," she said. "Not pretending pain didn't happen. Turning it into something that outlives you." Margaret's lips trembled. For the first time, she looked small. Not because Amara made her small. Because Margaret realized money could buy a wedding, but it couldn't buy the right to break people and still be admired. By nightfall, the estate looked even more like a dream. String lights glowed brighter against the dark sky. Music lifted off the lawn. People danced, laughed, posed for photos like the afternoon never happened. But the truth spread anyway. One guest posted a short clip, Ethan bowing his head to Amara. Another posted the moment the venue manager greeted her by name. A third posted Margaret's face tightening when the crowd stopped laughing with her. And the internet did what it always did when the moral line was clear. It chose a side. The comments poured in before the cake was cut. By the time Claire changed into her reception dress, a cousin was showing people a phone with wide eyes. "That's her," he whispered. "That's Kingsley." The guests who had laughed earlier approached with trembling smiles. "I'm so sorry," one woman said quickly. "I didn't realize." Amara's gaze was calm. "You didn't realize what?" she asked softly. The woman froze. Because that was the question no one wanted to answer out loud. Amara didn't wait. "I know," she said, and stepped past her. Across the lawn, Margaret hovered near the bar, surrounded by two friends who kept touching her arm like that could hold her together. She smiled too hard. Laughed too loudly. Told stories that didn't land. Every laugh sounded like a plea. Then her phone rang. She snatched it, turning away. "Yes?" A voice on the other end was low and urgent, her husband, or her CFO. The tone didn't matter. The meaning did. "What do you mean?" Paused. Margaret hissed. "Paused by who?" Her face shifted anger to confusion to panic. "Conduct risk," she repeated, louder. "That's insane. We have a closing scheduled. We have signatures. We have." She stopped. Because she remembered the champagne stain. She remembered the phones. She remembered Amara's thumb moving once. Margaret turned slowly, scanning the lawn until her eyes found Amara standing near Ethan and Claire, quiet, composed, untouched by the scrambling energy. Margaret's mouth went dry. She marched across the grass, heel stabbing the lawn as if she could punish the ground for betraying her. She arrived close enough that conversations hushed instinctively. "You did something," Margaret said, voice tight. "To our deal." Amara looked at her. "I did," she replied. "You can't," Margaret snapped. "My family needs that capital. People are counting on." "Then you should have acted like someone worth trusting," Amara said. Margaret's eyes flashed. Because earlier." "This is because you showed me who you are under pressure," Amara said. "And I don't sign contracts with people who treat humans like props." Ethan stepped forward. "Margaret, stop." Margaret whipped on him, wild. "You brought her here to destroy us." Ethan's voice stayed quiet, firm. "No," he said. "You brought yourself here. You just didn't expect a mirror." Claire stepped up beside Ethan, shoulders squared. Her voice didn't shake now. "Mom," Claire said, "you're done." Margaret stared at her daughter like she'd been slapped. "Claire." Claire's eyes shone with tears, but her tone didn't break. "You can either apologize," she said, "or you can leave tonight. Not because Amara is making you. Because I am." A ripple of gasps moved through the closest tables. Margaret looked around for support. She found phones. Eyes. Silence. And the sudden understanding that her social power, her favorite weapon, had turned into a witness stand. Her lips trembled. Pride fought survival behind her eyes. Then, slowly, she faced Amara. "I'm sorry," Margaret said. The apology was thin. Reluctant. Not remorse, damage control. Amara didn't smile. She watched Margaret like she was reading fine print. "That apology," Amara said softly, "is for the crowd." Margaret stiffened. "If you want to apologize to me," Amara continued, calm as snowfall, "do it without an audience. And do it without excuses." Margaret's face tightened with humiliation. But she said nothing. Because for the first time, she couldn't bully her way out. She could only sit inside the consequences. The wedding went on, music playing, lights glowing, while Margaret Whitmore stood in the middle of the lawn realizing the room no longer belonged to her. Weeks later, the estate was quiet again. The lawn trimmed. The arch gone. The string lights packed away. The property looked neutral, as if it had never witnessed anything ugly. But people remembered. Margaret tried to move through her social world like nothing happened: luncheons, charity boards, private clubs. She wore her pearls. Smiled at the right moments. Pretended. And then doors that used to open for her started staying closed. Not dramatically. Not with confrontation. With silence. An invitation never arrived. A call wasn't returned. A committee meeting was rescheduled without her. A friend who used to orbit her approval became politely distant. Margaret told herself it was temporary. But deep down, she knew what was happening. She was being treated the way she treated others. Claire and Ethan didn't talk about the wedding day much. They didn't need to. It lived in the way Claire corrected people when they whispered. In the way Ethan refused to laugh at jokes that weren't funny. In the way they chose friends, real friends, who didn't require someone else to be small. The scholarship fund was established quietly, with real oversight and real paperwork. No giant checks. No staged smiles. Just applications. Just acceptance emails that changed lives. Women who'd been told they were out of place in certain rooms were suddenly welcomed into rooms that mattered. Ethan called Amara one evening, voice low with humility. "It's working," he said. "The first round, we've got candidates." Amara listened, steady. "Good," she said. "Protect it." "What about the Whitmore deal?" Ethan asked carefully. Amara didn't answer immediately. Because this part was never about punishment. It was about standards. "We reopened discussions," she said. "With conditions." Ethan exhaled. "Conditions?" "Governance," Amara replied. "Transparency. A culture clause. Accountability. People don't get capital from me and keep cruelty as a hobby." Ethan went quiet for a beat. Then, "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me," Amara replied. "Be the kind of man who never needs to." On a rainy morning not long after, Margaret requested a private meeting. No guests. No phones. No audience. Just her and Amara in a quiet hotel lounge, the kind of place where power usually performed. Margaret arrived on time, posture careful, face tight. Amara was already seated, hands folded, a cup of tea untouched. Margaret sat across from her and stared at her own hands like they belonged to someone else. "I didn't realize," she began, then stopped. Amara watched without impatience. Margaret swallowed. "That's not true," she admitted. "I realized. I just didn't care." The honesty cost her. You could see it. Amara's voice stayed soft. Why? She asked. Margaret's mouth tightened. Because my world is built on hierarchy, she said. And when someone threatens it, someone who isn't supposed to be above me, I panic. Amara nodded once, like she'd heard the confession 1,000 times in different accents. Margaret looked up, eyes glossy, pride stripped down to bare fear. What do you want from me? She asked. Amara's answer was simple. I want you to change, she said. Not for me. For the people you'll meet when no one important is watching. Margaret's lips trembled. And if I don't? Amara's tone didn't change. Then you keep losing rooms, she said. Until you understand the room was never the prize. Margaret leaned back, shaken. She came to negotiate. But she was being asked to evolve. Outside, rain tapped the glass like quiet punctuation. When the meeting ended, Amara stood first. Smoothed her coat. No triumphant smile. No victory speech. Just a boundary. She walked away with the same calm that had stepped onto a wedding lawn and refused to be erased. Because justice doesn't always arrive with sirens. Sometimes it arrives with a name spoken clearly. And the kind of power that doesn't need to shout. Character is a currency. Respect is the only investment that always pays.